I want to thank Blake and Scott and all the staff of Hobnob and NBC for letting me appear this year. I'm kind of a little more relaxed than I have been in the past simply because I don't have an opponent Tuesday. It's going to be bad if I lose this election without an opponent, so I'm asking y'all to vote for me. I want to begin this speech with one point, and I'm going to make it when I end, so it might be a short speech. If you cannot insure a project, you probably can't borrow money from the bank. Now, if you're not listening to me, I'm going to say I'm going to raise your rates 300% down on the Gulf Coast, and insurance for health insurance is going up about 400%. I might get your attention. What I'm telling you is this: insurance may be the most important office that you have in state government. If you cannot insure a project, you probably can't finance it. If you can't finance it, you have absolutely no economic growth. Just think about what I'm saying to you. You can't have jobs, you can't have anything unless you have the ability to have viable insurance programs within the state of Mississippi. Just no job creation if you don't have it. I want to thank each of you for your support, though, in the general election, and I thank you for what you've done in the past in the Republican primary. I want to talk very briefly about some of the issues that we face on the Gulf Coast. How many of you actually listened to me about what I'm saying on the Gulf Coast? Okay, I'm glad to hear that. These are the Gulf Coast folks. We've made some progress on the Gulf Coast. We've got rates to level. We've got some pretty good people that have come in to write more insurance. We posted a bulletin at the Katrina event that showed that we have 5 companies writing insurance on the Gulf Coast that did not write pre-Katrina. And what that means is we spread competition on the Gulf Coast to where you have more people and more options when you try to find insurance on the Gulf Coast. And speaking of the Gulf Coast, we've expanded our office on the Gulf Coast. We've added another staff person who's an expert not only in insurance but in real estate and construction, and that's important for you to know about. We're adding someone who will teach fire education. I'm going to talk about that briefly in just a minute. But when you reduce fire deaths in the state of Mississippi, you reduce the premiums that you pay on your homeowner's insurance. You're going to see a lot of changes in the next 6 months in how we rate what we call public protection classes, even in spite of the fact that the legislature did not fund 3 rounds of the rural fire truck program at the tune of $3 million a year. They took $9 million in the last year that should have gone to the rural fire truck program and spent it somewhere else. On the Gulf Coast, if you're ever going to lower rates to where they need to be, you've got to have a mitigation program. And that means you've got to build a stronger home. You've got to build higher, stronger and higher. Stay out of the floodplain, build a stronger home so you have a place to come back to after you have a catastrophic event. To do that, if you got an older home, you can't tear it down and rebuild. Normally what you want to do is to mitigate it. That means you tie the roof down to the slab, if it's on the slab, or to the foundation to make sure the roof doesn't blow off. You protect the house. We call that protecting the envelope of the home. To do that, it takes money. We did a $29 million mitigation program several years ago, and we just completed it. And I am asking the wind pool, which receives a lot of tax dollars from surplus lines, to do a $5 million a year. Now listen to me. If you're not listening to anything, listen to this. A $5 million mitigation program that we can operate outside the red tape that we have to go through with government and operate through Habitat for Humanity or other nonprofits where we don't have a 30% overload. That will allow the consumer to get a payback on their investment over a 36-month period, which will lower insurance rates. When you mitigate a home, your rates for wind go down over 50%. And that's important if you live on the Gulf Coast. The Clarity Act was passed by the legislature this past session. We've got most of the data in from the Clarity Act. I will release most of that data for 10 years loss ratio, 10 years since 2004 through 2014, sometime around the 1st of December. There's going to be some eye-opening numbers in that report. When we release it, it's going to be hard for people to understand, but we think it's important that you know what's going on, not only on the Gulf Coast, but all the state of Mississippi. One of the things I'm most proud about is what we've done to help the consumers in this state. Since I've been your insurance commissioner, we've returned $22 million to the consumers in the last 7.5 years, in addition to $150 million that we recovered from the Franco case. most of you may not know this, but as commissioner, you normally serve if you take over a company as a trustee. So we've returned that money back to the proper people. We recovered about 50 cents on the dollar out of that case. It was a $400 million fraud case, so we've done well there. I applaud the passage of the PACE Act. Now, the PACE Act is an act that said that states like Mississippi could choose how large their small groups would be. Back when the Affordable Care Act was passed, I took the position that the state should choose what size a small group would be. And if you did that, then the state controls the size of the small group, which we set at 50. The federal government has set them at 100. The PACE Act allowed the states to keep the groups at 50 instead of having to go to 100. Those states that did not make the choice that we made in Mississippi to keep control in our state are facing draconian rate increases because they let the federal government run their business. Let me give you a quick example. If you have a small group of 50 and under, and you don't comply to the ACA, you're fined $100 a day per employee, $36,500 for each employee you have through the Internal Revenue Service. And if you're drinking coffee back there and not listening to this, we're probably the ones going to pick your pocket when it's all over. You have a cap on how much money they can take from you on the Internal Revenue Service, but usually it's capped at $250,000 to $500,000. I don't know how many small businesses could stand that much money going out the door for what they do. The Mississippi legislature has been very supportive of all of our actions outside of the Rural Fire Truck Program, and I applaud them for what they've done to let us move this department forward to become a paperless entity, and in addition to that, to try to change the direction in which we're going with technology. I'm going to close with a final note since I'm close to my time being out and tell you one more time that if you cannot insure a project, you probably cannot finance it at the bank. If you do not have a viable insurance industry, you will not have a viable economic growth in the state of Mississippi. Now, I have not talked about some of the issues that we face on a daily basis like cybersecurity, where you have millions of records that are stolen. That's some of the issues that we're facing. I haven't talked about the National Flood Insurance Program, which will come back next year, and you're going to see rates go from $500 a year back up to $19,000 or $20,000. In case you didn't hear that, from $500 to $600 a year to $19,000 to $20,000, which we experienced on the Gulf Coast when I filed suit against FEMA and the federal government to try to get the rates rolled back, and we were successful. I don't know if we'll be able to do that again. So when you look at what's happening on the national level and the federal level, you need to be supportive of Senator Cochran and Wicker and our congressional delegation on what they've tried to do to bring some rhyme and reason into the National Flood Insurance Program. The problem with federal government is this simple. The federal government wants everyone to buy flood insurance from them and not let private industry sell flood insurance on the Gulf Coast. We have 5 private companies that sell flood insurance on the Gulf Coast at rates lower than the National Flood Program. The federal government doesn't like that. Why? Because if people are low risk and they buy from the private industry, it increases the high risk pool for the federal government, and they want more and more people to buy from them and not from private industry. That's some of the issues that we face today. And I didn't talk about fracking because I guess you talked about that last night. It's not a cuss word. It sounds like it, but it's not. But we face fracking and fracking insurance when you look at what happens in the oil industry and injection of salt water into oil wells. We get involved in a lot of the issues like that, and including climate change. It's an interesting job that I have. I truly love getting up and going to work because I do make a difference. But the last thing I'm going to tell you is this. You cannot have a viable economy in the state of Mississippi if you do not have a viable insurance industry. Thank you for letting me be here. God bless you, and God bless the great state of Mississippi.